My name is Amanda, and I am 58. 6 weeks ago, a collections agent called my cell phone asking why I hadn't made a payment on a business loan I never remembered taking out. I hadn't taken it out, my son had, with my name on it. Here's how it started. My son Tyler is 27. 2 years ago, he came to me with a business plan for a mobile detailing service, washing cars at people's houses and offices instead of them driving somewhere. He'd done the math, he had a truck picked out. He had 3 commercial clients already lined up who just needed him to have proper equipment. He needed $40,000 in startup capital, and the bank wouldn't approve him a loan because his credit was thin. He brought a folder to dinner that night, an actual folder, tabbed and organized, with printouts of competitor pricing and a spreadsheet projecting his first-year revenue. I remember thinking, this doesn't look like a kid asking his mother for a favor. This looks like someone who's serious. He walked me through margins on interior detailing versus exterior-only packages, how he planned to structure recurring contracts with office parks so he'd have predictable income instead of one-off jobs. I asked him what would happen if a client canceled, if the truck broke down, if the first few months were slower than projected. He had an answer for all of it, or at least, an answer that sounded like one. He asked if I'd co-sign, not lend him money, just co-sign so the bank would say yes. I want to be clear about something before I go further, because it's easy to hear this and think I'm an idiot. I asked questions. I read the loan terms. I made him walk me through his business plan twice. I believed him because he'd been sober for 3 years at that point after a rough stretch in his early 20s, and this felt like watching him build something real for the first time. My husband Gary was less convinced. He said co-signing anything makes you just as responsible as if you'd taken the loan yourself. I told him I trusted our son. I signed anyway. For the first year, payments came out of Tyler's account like clockwork. I checked the account portal maybe once a month, saw the balance going down, felt good about it. Felt like I'd done the right thing by believing in him. He'd send me photos sometimes of a car he'd just finished, the paint gleaming under his portable lights, captioned with something like, "Client number 6, booked me for monthly now." I saved a few of those photos. I showed one to my sister at Thanksgiving, told her our boy had finally found his footing. I believed that completely, the way you believe things you want to be true. Then the calls started. Not from Tyler, from the bank, asking why the last 4 payments had bounced. I called Tyler immediately. He picked up the first time and told me it was a temporary cash flow issue. A client hadn't paid an invoice, he'd have it sorted within the week. I believed him again. Why wouldn't I? He'd never lied to me about money before, not since he got sober. I remember I actually apologized to him for calling in a panic, told him I trusted him to handle it, and he laughed a little and said, "Don't worry, Mom, I've got this." A week passed, then another. I told myself businesses have slow months, that this was normal, that I was overreacting the way parents sometimes do. The second time I called, it went to voicemail. The third time too. By the 4th call, the number wasn't accepting voicemails anymore. He'd blocked me. I sat at my kitchen table that night with the loan documents spread out in front of me, going through every page by myself, because there was nobody else to go through them with. Gary was traveling for work. My daughter doesn't speak to Tyler much, and I didn't want to drag her into it yet. It was just me, a stack of paper, and a growing feeling that I'd missed something obvious. I called the bank the next morning and asked them to send me a full transaction history on the disbursement, not just the payment schedule. It took 3 phone calls and 2 separate departments before anyone would actually email it to me, since technically I wasn't the primary account holder, just the person legally on the hook for it. I remember sitting in my car in the bank parking lot refreshing my email every few minutes like it was going to change what I already suspected. If stories like this make your stomach drop a little, hit subscribe before you hear what was actually in those records. And let me know in the comments, have you ever co-signed for someone? What I found wasn't a failed detailing business. There was no business. Not anymore, and honestly, I'm not sure there ever fully was one the way he described it. The equipment purchase on the loan disbursement records wasn't detailing equipment. It was a down payment on a truck, a nice one, financed the rest of the way separately in Tyler's name alone. And a chunk of the remaining money had gone to something labeled simply as a personal transfer. Dated around the same time Tyler's girlfriend Brooke moved into a new apartment I hadn't even known about. I need to explain something about Tyler here, because it would be easy to just call him a con artist and move on, and I don't think that's honest. Tyler's sobriety wasn't as solid as I believed it was. I found that out later too, piecing it together from things Brooke eventually told me. He'd relapsed quietly about 8 months into the loan, right around when the payments started slipping. Not drugs, gambling, this time, something he'd never struggled with before, which is maybe why none of us were watching for it. He was ashamed. He told Brooke he'd rather disappear than tell his mother he'd failed again, that he could fix it before anyone found out, the same way he used to believe he could fix everything quietly before it became a crisis. The truck and the apartment weren't cruelty toward me. They were a man trying to look like he had his life together to a girlfriend who didn't know how bad things actually were, while a much bigger problem was eating the money underneath all of it. That doesn't undo what he did to me financially, but it changed the shape of my anger. I wasn't just furious at him, I was scared for him. Gary came home from his trip to find me still sitting at that same table, 3 days of bank statements fanned out like evidence in a trial. He didn't say I told you so. He read through everything quietly, then asked me one question: did I want to report it as fraud, since technically Tyler had used loan funds for purposes outside what he'd told the bank. I said no almost before he finished asking. Whatever Tyler had done, I wasn't going to be the one who put my own son in a room with a fraud investigator. Gary didn't push. He just put his hand over mine and said we'd figure out the payments together, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel completely alone in it. I spent the next few weeks alone with the bank's collections department because Tyler still wasn't answering anyone. I'm the one who negotiated a reduced settlement so I wouldn't lose the house. I'm the one who sat on hold for 90 minutes at a time explaining, again, that yes, I understood I was legally responsible. Yes, I understood cosigners don't get special treatment just because their kid disappeared. One woman in collections, a supervisor named Sandra, was the only person in that entire process who treated me like a human being instead of an account number. She told me, off script I think, that she saw this exact situation more often than people realize: parents co-signing for kids who spiral, then vanishing from the paperwork the same way they vanish from the relationship. She wasn't allowed to reduce what I owed by much, but she walked me through every option there was, twice, patiently, on a Tuesday afternoon when I was crying quietly enough that I hoped she couldn't hear it through the phone. She also told me something I hadn't thought to ask about, that once a settlement was finalized, the bank would stop all collection contact with Tyler entirely, since I'd be the one holding the remaining obligation going forward. In a strange way that felt like losing him twice. Once when he stopped answering, and again when the bank quietly erased him from the paperwork altogether, like he'd never been part of any of it to begin with. I never confronted him in some big dramatic moment. There was no scene, no yelling across a kitchen table, no slammed door. Just me, quietly working through thousands of dollars of consequences by myself, night after night, while the person who caused it stayed completely unreachable. I doubted every part of myself during those weeks. Was I a fool for signing in the first place? Was I a worse fool for believing him the second and third time he said it was temporary? Gary never said I told you so, not once, but I said it to myself enough times for both of us. I started wondering if loving your kid uncritically is actually a kindness, or if it's just a slower way of letting them hurt you. Tyler resurfaced in October, not with an apology exactly. He showed up at the house on a Sunday looking thinner than I remembered, unshaven, wearing a jacket I didn't recognize. He stood on the porch for a full minute before I opened the door, like he'd been rehearsing something and lost his nerve. He told me about the gambling, about Brooke, about how ashamed he'd been every single day he didn't answer my calls. He said the first missed payment felt like a hole he could still climb out of quietly, and by the time it clearly wasn't, he didn't know how to call me without saying all of it at once, so he just didn't call at all. He said he'd started going to meetings again, a different kind this time, for the gambling specifically. He said he wanted to pay me back, starting with $50 a week, which is close to nothing against what I'm actually out, but it was something. He didn't ask me to forgive him. He just asked if he could keep showing up. I don't know if I believe him this time the way I believed him the first time. I want to. That's not the same thing as trusting it. He's been showing up every Sunday since, sitting at the same kitchen table where I found out everything, handing me an envelope with cash in it that barely dents what's owed. We don't talk about the business anymore. We mostly just sit there, and some weeks that feels like healing, and other weeks it feels like I'm just watching the clock, waiting to see if this is the version of him that stays or the version that disappears again the second things get hard. Last Sunday, he brought Brooke with him for the first time. She sat across from me and apologized for things that weren't even hers to apologize for, and I could tell by the way she kept glancing at Tyler that she was still scared of the same thing I was, that this calm version of him is temporary, that the ground could shift again without warning. Gary made small talk about the weather like he does when he doesn't know what else to say, and for about 20 minutes it almost felt like an ordinary Sunday dinner, the kind we used to have before any of this happened. People ask if I'd co-sign for him again knowing what I know now. I honestly don't have a clean answer. Love doesn't come with a credit check, and maybe that's the whole problem, and maybe that's also the only reason he's still sitting at my table on Sundays instead of gone for good.